Today, I want to talk about the dark psychology of hard hitters, big punches in boxing and combat sports in general, but particularly boxing. All right, so you'll notice a trend if you look at the top hitting heavyweights of the past few generations: George Foreman, Mike Tyson, Deontay Wilder. They've all mentioned their desire to kill somebody in the ring. And actually, somebody who said something words similar to this was David Hay. He'd never said he wanted to kill anyone, but when he was talking about Tony Bellew, he said that he may kill him in the ring or cripple him, and that's the risk Tony Bellew is actually taking. Now, lots of people are disgusted by this, but myself, I'm not. I mean, it's just words at the end of the day, and a fighter can only go at 100%. No matter what their intentions are, they can only go at 100%. So they're not actually really increasing the likelihood that that's going to happen. But what I want to talk about is, why does this happen? Why do they go to this dark place mentally to bring out their punching power? Now, this actually all starts from their first experience walking into the boxing gym. If you've ever been in the boxing gym, you will know that if you hit hard on the pads, for example, then coaches will pay attention to you. They'll realise, okay, this guy has punching power, therefore, if we can get the skill together, he can be extremely dangerous. And I remember this because I was always quite a hard hitter, but I wasn't prolific because I didn't have the aggression. My coaches were always trying to bring aggression out of me. I remember on one occasion, I actually hit somebody on the bell, just as the bell went to finish the round, and his eye closed immediately. And I apologised to the coach, and he said, no, that's exactly what I want from you. I want aggression. So imagine if you had done that, and this is what I took from that, is after sparring, after doing that to somebody, I wanted to start marking people's faces up. Okay? So let's say you do that, you swell somebody's eye up, you're praised for it, and then you want to mark their faces up more. Then you cause somebody a bad cut, you're praised for your work. Let's say it's in sparring or in a fight. And so it goes on and on. You start to hit somebody to the body, they fall to the floor, clutching at their ribs because they can hardly breathe, and you're praised for it. The human brain behaviour is really quite predictable. If you praise somebody for doing something, they're going to keep doing that behaviour, especially if the person giving the praise is considered an important figure, somebody of credentials, status and credentials. If you have a dog, for example, and it shows aggression, and you praise it and give it a treat, it will become more and more and more aggressive. And humans are very much the same. During times of, in Nazi Germany, in the 1940s, they used these, and the 1930s obviously, they used these psychological conditioning systems to get people to behave a certain way. They still use it in dictatorships today. People who show allegiance to the state get praised. They might get medals, they might get money, they might go to parties with sort of bigwigs, this kind of thing. This is all part of the same conditioning system for your brain and for your behaviour. And what you will see is oftentimes when you get a big hitter, they mark somebody up, they drop them, they knock them out, and they get praised for it. Now the question is, how can I get more praise? And they realise it's to go the next level up. So it might be, if they're knocking people out within 6 rounds, to do it within 3 rounds. Now they're going to get even more praise and even more praise, to the point where let's say they're knocking people out in the first round, or they're completely destroying people's faces, shattering their orbital bone. It's like, well, how much further can they take that behaviour? It is to take their opponent's life, basically. And if you consider the most conclusive way that you can possibly beat someone in a fight, it is to take their life, of course. Now, imagine if you turned up to a golfing tournament and you landed nothing but hole-in-ones. That would be considered a perfect game. And the good thing is, there nobody's getting harmed. But the harsh reality of boxing is people are getting harmed in boxing. And this is why I don't necessarily disagree with the whole boxing should be banned thing. In an ideal world, people wouldn't actually be engaging in this kind of behaviour. But they do. And I'm not endorsing people who have this mentality of damaging their opponents. I'm not endorsing conditioning people to do this. I think it's much more effective and much healthier to condition them to just focus on what they can focus on, as in landing a higher percentage of their shots, etc., rather than doing things like marking up an opponent's face. But this you'll often find with these really hard hitters, they don't actually have much measure in their character, so they're not usually that composed. So you look at George Foreman when he fought Muhammad Ali, he showed a complete lack of composure. Mike Tyson showed lack of composure throughout his whole career in terms of outside the ring. Deontay Wilder, lack of composure in and out of the ring. David Haye lacked composure in the first Tony Bellew fight, lacked it in the second fight, lacked it in the Carl the Cat Williams fight where he was stopped. He lacked it in Dusseldorf when he was at the Klitschko versus Chisora post-fight press conference. Anyone with any sense would have just removed themselves from that situation, but David Haye didn't. So this is sort of just a dive into why this happens, and to let you understand actually that these people are not necessarily inherently terrible people. It's just they've been conditioned a certain way most of the time to behave that way. Now, some of it is genetic, and some people just have actually a desire to harm people, which is sad to say, but it's true. But I think in most cases in boxing, when you get people who have these dark intentions in the ring, and by the way, most of the people who have those intentions, they never voice it. But most people have those intentions, it's just their way of getting 100% out of themselves in their own mind. But actually, it doesn't really do it. It doesn't really do it, because you look at somebody who's had a really consistent career, like Usyk, Tyson Fury, Andre Ward. Both these guys can get into the trenches and fight on the inside very well. All three of those guys, but they're all technicians, and they come in with a mechanical mindset oftentimes of just win. It doesn't matter if I win by 1 point or if I win by a shutout. As long as I win and I'm not coming out of the fight damaged, then that's something to be happy about. Now, obviously, all three of those guys have been in situations where they were getting outboxed, and so they went and took the fight to the trenches. Usyk was getting outboxed by Michael Hunter, took him to the trenches and then schooled him. Tyson Fury was getting outboxed by Steve Cunningham, so he took him to the trenches and destroyed him. Andre Ward, he was getting outboxed by Chad Dawson, so he started to make it a rough fight. All right, so I hope all that's made sense. I'm not endorsing that mentality. There needs to be measures put into boxing to stop this kind of thing happening, and I believe actually holding referees and trainers legally accountable is very important. If a fighter gets knocked out in sparring, pull him from the fight. He can't take any headshots for 6 months. If a fighter's been sick after sparring, again, pull him from the fight. Trainers should be examined to find out if they had any intention of ever stopping a fight, no matter how bad it got. And referees, oftentimes, it's not oftentimes, but sometimes there might be financial bias. Maybe they've got a bet on a fight or whatever. They all need to be examined. We can't be having all these tragedies in boxing. Like the Gerald McClellan one, I think that was probably completely avoidable. By the sounds of it, he had extremely rough sparring, and nobody actually gave a crap about his health. And I think Emmanuel Stewart is a legendary coach, and boxing is worse off without him. But the whole ridiculous Kronk doing 10 rounds, beating the crap out of each other with the radiator turned on, it's not good for the brain. It is not good for the brain. There needs to be regulations, and people need to be held legally accountable. What do you think in terms of the psychology of fighters who have voiced their intentions, their desire to cause serious harm or even death? What do you think causes it? Should they be allowed to box? And how can we actually make boxing safer? And in an ideal world, do you agree with me that in an ideal world, boxing wouldn't exist? But at the end of the day, if you legalise it, it's going to become underground and even harder to regulate. And you won't be collecting tax income. Anyway, you have yourself a good day. Thank you very much. I'll speak to you soon.